All right, good afternoon, everybody. I hope that you have had a great Easter weekend and came into Tuesday refreshed. Speaking of refreshed, we're going to talk about refreshing your knowledge on Zoom. We went through a lot of stuff a couple weeks ago when it came to Zoom, and I want to make sure that I answer as many of your questions as I can. So on that note, let's go ahead and get started. But just to let you know, the chat is closed. So depending on the time, if we have plenty of time at the end, I'll open up the chat and I'll answer some of your questions. Or if we have time, I'll have you raise your hand and you can ask me about whatever question you might have. But for now, the chat is going to be closed. Just some norms that we want to hit. Your audio is already muted, but if I do ask you to unmute and ask your question, just do me a favor. Once you're done asking it, you can go ahead and mute it. Or when we're done with our interaction, if you can mute it, that'd be great. I want to try to get to as many people and questions as we can. Keep your video hidden unless you're asking a question. If you want to start up your video, then that's fine. But I want to help everybody who's trying to watch this with good video quality. And we'll talk more about that as we go through today's webinar. And over and above all else, please be nice. We want to make sure that we're being nice to each other and to me, because there is only me. I've got no one else monitoring the chat. So I want to make sure that when it is your turn, if you can be nice, that'd be great. And one final reminder, you are being recorded. I don't do that to be mean, but I do it to make sure that the webinar is available at a later time for those who can't make it. So I want to make sure that everyone has their chance. So have you ever been a board teacher? Well, there is a group of board teachers out there on YouTube, and one of them recorded a great video. Take a look. All right, so let's talk about our agenda. We're going to go over some settings. We're going to answer your questions, and if time allows, we'll have a Q&A at the end. All right, a quick update on Google Meet. If you remember, we were having an issue where students could enter the meeting without the teacher in there after the meeting had been over. There have been some updates, and we are testing them. Their instructions are so rigid that they have to be followed almost perfectly. Actually, perfectly, not even almost. So as of right now, we will let you know as soon as we're done testing and probably provide some sort of training. But as of now, no change. Please continue to use Zoom with students. And if you want to use Google Meet with admin or teachers or staff, that's perfectly fine. But as of now, Zoom with students. And if you remember this site, we were talking about Zoom bombers and settings, making sure our settings were perfect. Well, if you remember, this was a link that we could click on that will give you a PDF that explains some of those settings. But we're going to go live so you can see more of those settings. And I'm just going to quickly go through some of those major settings the way they look right now. All right, so let me open up a new tab and I'm going to go to zoom.us. Again, if you can edit the settings in a web browser and not in the app, that would be wonderful. Normally I'd have to log in, but I think I've already been logged in once today. Let me go to my account, settings. So just some of the major settings to make sure. I'm not going to go through each and every one, but I am going to talk about a few that I keep getting emails about. Host video and participants video, up to you. I like to have the host on and the participants off. Again, that's up to you. Audio type, both telephone and computer. Join before host, off. Notice I'm passing all the password stuff. I like to keep all those authenticated or password schedules off. Keep on the mute participants upon entry. The chat, allowing the participants to send messages, that's up to you. I recommend turning it on and then editing it within the app as you're working with your students. I'll show you how to do that. Private chat, always off. The reason we want this off is that students can chat one-to-one with each other, even if you only restrict it, and you don't get a record of it. So we want to make sure that private chat stays off. Let's see here. Co-host, that is up to you. Co-host, I would probably turn on if it has to do with your PLCs, but I would probably keep it off if it has to do with your students only. I'm going to talk about polling a little bit later, but polling is only available in the upgraded versions of Zoom, and I'm going to talk about what else you can do for polling instead of Zoom. Let's see here. Screen sharing should always be set to host only, and I'll show how to change that on the fly when you get into a Zoom meeting with your students. Let's see here. Notice all this is all stuff that you don't have access to just yet, and if you do, I haven't played around with it just yet. Let's see here. Allow remove participants to rejoin. You can have them rejoin and go into your waiting room if you want it. The allow participants to rename yourselves. Again, I would probably keep that on, but just keep in mind that the students will actually chat back and forth using their names. So just be careful with that. Breakout room, I would turn off. Let's see, what else? Virtual background, I would also turn off. It's a pain to manage, and if you're anything like a kid, they're going to want to change their background constantly. Save yourself the grief, turn it off. Let's see here. Other than that, keep the waiting room on for all participants. I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later on. And always show a join from browser link when they log in. So those are all the settings that you need to worry about. And so I'm going to go back to the presentation. All right, there you go. Let me go back into present mode. So what I did is I took some of your videos in Flipgrid, as well as some of your emails that you sent me over the last few days, including the weekend. And I took those videos and I embedded them into my presentation, as well as the questions, so that you'll see them as they come up. And I just thought that'd be a real easy way for me to answer them instead of typing them all out or trying to explain. You can hear where the question's coming from. So let's take a look at our first video, and that's from Diane Johns. Diane, what do you got for me?
Good morning, Dan and Steve. Regarding Zoom, we were wondering, some of the candidates and myself, how can we control that chat box so the kids can just respond to the teachers? So it would just be one-on-one. I saw it in some of your meetings, but we can't figure it out in the settings. Thanks. Bye.
Great question, Diane. So let's go into a Zoom meeting. So here I am. I have a student that's actually ready to be admitted. So there's my student. And his audio is getting connected. So let's say that my students are chit-chatting back and forth. So if you notice, it's blinking. There's where my chat is. Everyone can see that. Well, if you notice, there's the 3 dots right here. I can make that go to host only. And almost immediately, on the student side, it goes to me only. And I can actually see exactly what they're saying because it is going to just me. And there you can see it's going to me privately. That's how I know it's coming to me only. This is why that one-to-one setting in Zoom was really important, is for that reason. They can't one-to-one chat with each other. And I've made it to where they can't go to everybody by changing it to host only. Now I could do it to where I'm presenting, I want them to pay attention to me, and I can turn off the chat altogether. So now I've got it on to no one. So no matter what the student does, they get chat disabled. So that's how you turn on and off the chat, depending on your needs. Now you may use the everyone publicly if you're posing a question to your class. That would work out really well. But then again, once they're done, you can instantly turn off their chatting so it goes to you only. So understand that this can be done at any time during your call. Don't worry about it in the settings. As long as the chat is open in the settings, you will be able to do all of this. Great question, Diane. All right, let's take a look at our next question. And that's coming from April Kelly. April, what do you got?
Hi, Dan. This might might seem like a silly question, but I want to know if I can mute the students after they've been unmuted to and lock them to mute so they can't unmute themselves again. If I can manually mute them if they're talking too much or if their microphone is going haywire, can I mute them myself and have them blocked from unmuting themselves until I unmute them again? Thank you. Have a great day.
Well, thanks, April. And so let me go back to Zoom. So here I've got my student. Right now, he's got his mic muted. Under participants, so right now I've got it turned on. Under more, this is where you would have the control from the students. So normally I would have mute participants on entry, and I would uncheck allow participants to unmute themselves. That way the host is in control, you, and not the student. As the student, when they go to unmute, they are forced quiet. So there's no way that they can try to unmute themselves and talk. So if you don't allow it, it can't happen. So that's a big one. You want to make sure there's no check there. And that's how you would do that. Now, as far as muting the students, if I were to mute them, I can do that from up here. If you notice right now, it says unmute. I'm going to go ahead and unmute it, and hopefully we won't get too much feedback. And I'll mute my speaker so we don't get that. And I'm going to unmute them manually. So now you can see that they've been asked. And now you can see that they're receiving the signal. You can see the microphone up there jump up and down. And now that they're done, I'm done listening to what they have to say. Now they're muted. And I'll unmute myself. So that's how you would mute them and unmute them manually. And again, I am controlling whether they are muted or not the student. So that's a great way on how to do that. Okay? Great question, April. All right, let's take a look at another question. Video number 3. All right, Nadine, what do you got?
Hello. Thank you all so much for all of the support that you've given us with all of this technology. I just had a question regarding Zoom. When I go into ClassLink and I click Zoom, I get a pop-up box, but something different happens depending on how I open that app. So if I click on the pop-up box, I am not able to I don't have as much control over what's happening inside my meeting. But if I close the pop-up box and then I click on open in browser, I have more control. I'm able to do the virtual background. I'm able to mute all of the students and just handle that side of the meeting. But my screen starts looking funny. So depending on which one I go in, if I go in the pop-up box, it gives me a totally different meeting ID, even though I entered with the meeting ID that I created. So if you could help me figure that out, that would be absolutely wonderful. So I'm just trying to be as consistent as possible, but I see that that's a challenge, and I want to figure out that challenge so that I can take care of it. Thank you.
All right, Nadine. So first of all, you're very welcome for all the help you've been getting. We have more than happy to do that for you. A couple things. The number one is under your settings, instead of being in settings, so I should say back in Zoom, when you look at your meetings, let me go all the way back up to the top. I like to schedule my meetings inside of Zoom. I don't necessarily like to do it through the calendar every single time or through the iPad app. I like to come to the website. That's just my personal preference. What I do like about doing that is I can start that meeting from inside of Zoom. I don't have to worry about starting it from a pop-up. It will ask me to open the app though. So if I'm on a desktop, whether it's a PC or an iPad or a Mac, which I'm using right now, I want it to ask me to use the app because I want to use the app. So if I start this meeting, it's going to run and it's going to ask me to open that Zoom. Now, I can't do that right now because it's already locked up, but I want to be able to open that up, and I want to be able to use it. Now, if I'm on a Chromebook, it's going to be completely different. I'm going to start from my browser. So be very careful with where you open it up. And Nadine, again, we can take a look at specifics when you go to do it. Maybe we can practice as well. Just let me know and we'll set up a meeting. Hope that answers your question. So as of right now, it's sort of like we'd have to take a look and see what your computer's doing. Next question. This is from Karen Clark.
Oh, okay. So I forgot to hit the play button. So I want to know if within a meeting, if I can suddenly go ahead and get rid of the waiting room, because I switch back and forth from meetings with students to meetings with adults and teachers. And I ignored my waiting room one day. Oops. And so I want to know if, without having to go back into the regular settings, if I can do that and just keep the waiting room open when I switch meetings like that. The other thing is I occasionally want a student to screen share for me, but I don't want to have to open up all my settings. Is that possible? Or do I have to just open the settings and have the student share with me? The other thing is I have a student who logs in and his name is my name, which is kind of weird. And he's on a Chromebook. So I'm wondering, I was able to change his name. I renamed him during the meeting, but I'm wondering why he keeps showing up as Clark when we have our meeting. Other than that, Zoom's been going really well. The kids are enjoying it. It's nice to touch base with them. Just those small little things. So I appreciate your help. Thank you.
All right, Karen, so let's get that answered for you. So let me get out of here. Let me go into Zoom. So I don't have my students here. I do have my waiting room. So let me join the room, and I'll have my students join the room as well. Now, sometimes if it's set up correctly, I have the play, enter, and exit chime going. But I think because we're on our call, it's muting it, and that's why I can't hear it, and that's fine. But let me go ahead and have them join. And usually that's about the time where you'd hear the ding dong. When I hear the ding dong, then I know it's time to come check my waiting list. Now I can add them into my class, and now they've joined. Now, if that's the case, then I can continue teaching, and if I hear that ding dong again, I can then let the next student in. But here's what I want you to understand, that if you turn off that waiting room, and I get the whole idea of missing out on a student who might be trying to get in, but by disabling the waiting room, that means anybody who leaves, so let me make this student leave, when they come back in, there's no stopping them, which means that if they hand off your code to someone else, they will make their way all the way into your meeting, and you may not know that they're there. So that's why that exit enter chime is really important. And for me, I think for the security, keeping that on. So I think that's question number one. Question number two was the screen share. So at any time during your presentation, if you hit that up caret, you will see the advanced sharing options. As of right now, I'm the only one who can share. Let's say I want to have my sample students share something. I can open up to all participants and then allow them to share. So let me pull up something for them to share. I'll share maybe, I'll be nice, I'll share my, let's see here, I'll share my photos with of me and my family on Easter. This is where everyone at home goes, "Aw, what a beautiful family." I know, except for that big guy in the middle. It's a beautiful family. So I can do that screen sharing at any time. When I'm done with them up here at the top, I can stop that and then change back to the host only. So I can do that on a moment's notice during the call, which is what I love about Zoom. I can do everything on task and at that time. All right, and then question number 3 was about the student that was named something different when they came in. What I would bet, and again, not knowing what the student's going through, I would bet that the student is thinking they need to put in your name when they sign in. It's hard for me to show you that, But when the student signs in, they're given a spot to put in a name, and that's when they would put in, Jose or Sophia or something like that as their name instead of your name. So I would bet that they're putting that in thinking that they're attaching themselves to your account. All right, Karen, so there you go. Great questions. Let me get out of this and go back to the presentation for our next question. All right, and this is from Tumbleweed Jessica Cox.
Hi, Dan. You told me to go be a student. I think this is me being a student. So my question for Zoom is I have been using the chat to have my students respond to questions because some of their audio breaks up a bit and it's difficult to hear them. I want to know, though, is there a way, is there something in settings that I can go set where they can only reply to me and not to each other? Because I just want to make sure that nobody's sending messages to each other, but they're only sending it to everyone and I can see everyone, or they only send it directly to me. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, I'm sure it's just some setting thing that I have to figure out. All right, thanks.
All right, Jessica, no problem. By the way, I love your paint night photos behind there. Mine would look like big stick figures, nothing like what you have back there. Let's take a look at the Zoom one more time. So I showed this a little bit earlier. Again, it's in the chat and then the three dots. So as long as you have the chat turned on in the settings, so remember the settings, as long as you have that chat turned on, let me turn that off. And by the way, if you're ever not sure about where to find a setting, I like to find it by text so it pops up. It just makes my life easier. I like to turn on the chat, prevent the students from saving the chat, and then also turn off that private chat. So if those three things are good, you're good to go. So then over here in Zoom, when I'm running my meeting, then in the chat, I can control it during the meeting. Maybe I'll let everyone talk before we start, and then I'll bring it to no one, or I'll give it to host. But this is where you change it, is right here in the chat. Good job, Jessica. All right, let me close that up. Let's bring up our next person. Oops, and I skipped him. There we go. Oh, I went 2.
Hey there, Dan. It seems like the biggest thing that came up for me during Zoom was students saying they couldn't get in, even though they had been able to get into other teachers' Zoom sessions. So I'm not sure if that is a recurring problem for a lot of people. I just encourage them to go back to ClassLink and their Palmdale account and go through their Google Classroom to access the link. But there was not some success with some of those. So that's it for me.
So again, it goes back to how the kids are logging in. Are they logging in with a certain device that they can get in, or they can't? But the big thing for me, let me get out of this again. I know I keep going back and forth. And the reason why I like coming into here to look at my meetings is that whenever I look at the meetings, it gives me the link. So as long as I give that to the students, they should, in theory, be able to log in. This is the link I want to give. Now, again, over on the YouTube channel that Steve and I post a lot of our podcasts, our webinars, there's a playlist there for distance learning. In there are a bunch of different videos specifically on how to get the kids into Zoom with all the different ways. So whether it is from a Chromebook, whether it's from an iPad or another tablet, or even a desktop PC or laptop, whether it's Mac or regular PC, that video's on there and they can follow the steps that are in there. And they can be translated in Spanish, and there's a video on how to do that as well. So they should be able to get in. Again, it all comes down to this link right here. Make sure you're giving them the most active link you can. And again, the reason I like doing it inside of Zoom is that everything is right there in front of me. All my major settings are here, as well as the link. So again, that's me, and maybe at the very end I'll show you how to set up a meeting from inside Zoom. It just makes it a little bit easier. Great question. Let's continue.
Hello, my name is Tammy Pickett, and I was just wondering how I could get more than 2 YouTube videos on the Zoom area to share. The problem I'm having is I can get one video up, but when I go to switch over to the next video, I'm not able to get that. So video and other content, I'm just wondering the best way to get it in the share area so that I'm able to easily share through Zoom. Okay, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right, Tammy, that's a great question. So let me open up Zoom again. Before I open up Zoom, actually, while I'm in Chrome, let me go to YouTube, and I'll actually use the question about the different, the distance learning. So let me just go to PSD, and let me go to my playlists. And so you'll see this distance learning set of videos. Whoops. Let me pause that. You can see them all here. But let's say that this is the first video.
All right,
and
students,
let me pause that. There we go. So let's say this is the first video. And maybe I've got another video from another link in there. So maybe I want to show them. Let's see. Let me go back to that same playlist. We'll go to distance learning. Let me pause that. And accessing Zoom on a desktop. So I've got 2 YouTube videos ready to go. Now, when you come back into Zoom, and I'm going to share my screen, normally I would say just choose Google Chrome. But share your desktop. Desktop will give you everything you can see that is open on your desktop. So I'm going to share that. And now I can go in between the 2 videos that I have on my screen. I can control them, I can pause them, I can move them, and my kids would see the same thing. That back and forth between the videos. So if I show this video, it's all done. I can close it, show this video, and then stop my share. And I can come back to my kids. So when you share the entire desktop, not just the Chrome browser. So again, that's in the share screen, and you want to share the desktop. Great question, Tammy. All right, we're moving along. Let's get them all answered. All right, Carolyn, you're up. Whoop. There we go.
Hi, Dan. I've been pushing into some Zoom meetings as a co-host. And what I'm having troubles with is some of our students are able to figure out how to re-put on their video and their audio, even though we keep trying to turn them off. Yesterday, I had a problem with a student making faces and posting a picture that was inappropriate. And it took me forever to kind of find him and the 30-some kids that were on the Zoom to click him off. So that's one thing I would like to know. Another thing is I'm having problems with one of my teachers. The voice is so stuttered. Like the kids just complain, we can't hear you, we can't hear you. So those are my big questions so far on Zoom. And other than that, it's going good. Thanks.
All right, so let's answer that question. So Carolyn, when I go into Zoom, here I am. So the first question I'm going to answer is the garbled audio question. The thing I would say is remind your students to turn off their videos. And there's a couple things that goes into it. One is the internet connection that your teacher has. If they're not in a great spot, then they're going to get a really garbled, sometimes bad video to their students. So they really need to make sure they have a good internet connection. If they have extra devices attached to their network, like TVs or stuff like that, then making sure that they're off the network or wiring directly into the router that gives her that connection, or going to school and work from work where we have a great internet there. As far as the student goes, so let's say that my sample student starts their video and does something inappropriate. The first thing I would do is put them in the waiting room. And if you notice over waiting room, I can actually send them a message and I can say, knock that off. The principal will be calling. So just that way that they know that that's going on, and they do get a message while they're in the waiting room. The other thing about that is, let's say you let them back in, and again, I would put them into gallery view. So normally you're in speaker view. I would put them into gallery view. So like in my sample student, if he does something inappropriate and I stop his video, he can no longer turn it on. So right now I am the student, I'm trying to turn on my video and it is not working. It says that it has been disabled. He gets to have it back when I ask him to restart his video. And so now he's got his video back. But again, if for some reason that just isn't working and he does it again, I would say either remove him or put him in the waiting room to talk to him later. And then you can remove him altogether if that's what you choose to do. But once you remove the ability for him to use his video, so let me do that again, stop video, he cannot turn it back on. It says your host, you cannot start your video because the host has disabled it. So you have that ability, you can control that, but you can't control it until after the meeting starts, okay? Hope that answers your question. All right, back to our questions, and let's talk to Randy. Let's see what he's got for us.
This is Randy Champagne calling. The only question that I really had that I tried to do it based on something that somebody sent me is getting the Zoom meetings to store in the cloud rather than on my computer. If you could help me with that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, Randy, great question. The first thing I'm going to preface with is iPads and Chromebooks do not record to the cloud. So if you're using one of those two devices, that is not possible. That's an upgrade to the Zoom world that it would be very expensive for our district to do for everybody, which is why I recommended using your cell phone or even the iPad, district iPad, if you're not using it for Zoom, to record your sessions audio. That way you have some sort of a record of what's going on. But as far as, let's say that you have recorded your session and you want to get it up into your Google Drive, by doing it here, I would even make a folder that's called Zoom meetings. And then when you go into your drive to that Zoom meeting, let me open up the folder, which is one of many folders I have inside of my drive. So here's my Zoom folder. So let's say I want to put a Zoom meeting in. I would go File Upload from the New button. And usually your Zoom meetings are saved, whether it's a PC or a Mac, in the Documents, Zoom. And these are all my recorded Zoom meetings. Here's my Zoom movie. You can see that it's about ready to load. And open that in there. So now it's in my cloud of Drive and not on my computer. Again, that's not going to work on iPad, and it's not going to work on a Chromebook. This is usually only with a PC or a Mac. And you can see now my video is into my Drive. So again, no iPad, no Mac, no Chromebook for the Zoom cloud recording. Sorry, Randy. All right, moving on. All right, Michael, go for it.
Hey, Dan and Steve, thanks a lot for the original classes on Zoom. It was a big help. The one question I have is, how do I set up a chat so it only comes to the hosts? That's the only one I'm trying to figure out. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
All right, you got it, Michael. Now, I could have very easily just had all these questions as one, but the reason I wanted to put these questions, the same question, multiple times through there is because this is one of the most common questions we get, how to control the chat. So again, chat button, 3 dots, no one, host only, everyone publicly. So you have those choices. That's why I put that in there. So make sure you take a look at those, Michael. Good job. Good question. All right, let's come back to the presentation and let's hear our next question. This one is from Andrew Ramirez. Andrew, what you got?
Thanks for everything you've been doing. It's been really helpful, especially for those that have had a lot of trouble with technology. It's just, this is really new to them. My question is on Zoom. It looks a lot different when I do the setup, as if I can't, stop a lot of the chatting and things like that in the setup. I have to go into the meeting and spend a little bit of time doing that. Does it look different for us, or did I create an account incorrectly? I'm not quite sure, because it seems like when you went to set up the meeting, it just had a lot more that you could do. Secondly, I'm not quite sure if the Zoom meetings are saved to the cloud and I can access them through my account any computer I go onto, or if the meetings are only recorded to my computer. That'd be a great question to answer, not just for me, but a couple of people who are trying to record videos and do lessons and things like that, save them, and then upload them. And I think they've said that they can't find their video. So thank you again for everything, and we appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Andrew. So I know I answered both questions, but I'm gonna show you again. The chat is always going to be in the settings. At least that's where the main. Oh, I got to get logged in again. See, it randomly logged you out. Let me get back in. There we go. Again, I like using the find. This is where I like to turn it on. If you want to have the chat, if you don't want to have the chat, turn it off completely, and you can actually keep it out of the meeting. But as far as in meeting goes, again, chat button, 3 dots, and this is where you can control it in during your meeting. For me, Steve, Melissa, and Jerry, yeah, we have more buttons than a lot of you guys do. We have the advanced account because we need to be able to have as many of you join our meetings, and that involves having certain things. One of those certain things is the ability to record to the cloud. You guys do not have the ability to record to the cloud. You can only record to your computer, which is your laptop or your desktop, and I think I mentioned that earlier as well. If you're saving to your desktop, and I think I mentioned this as well, when I come to the Finder, and again, I'm on a Mac. If you're on a PC, you would go to My Computer, and in your documents, you'll see a folder called Zoom. And every time it records, it'll create a new folder. So also in settings is a spot at the very top called recording. And here's how you know whether or not you have local recording. So that would be your desktop or laptop. And then cloud recording. Most likely, you guys do not have cloud recording. Again, that is because you guys don't have those settings on that account. So if you look at the plans and pricing, one of the things that we have on there is for all the pro features is the cloud recording. We don't have that on the regular account. So here's the cloud recording storage that Steve, myself, and the girls have. You guys don't have that on your account because it is optional, and you guys have it's sort of like the in between basic and pro, because that's the account that Zoom has given education. So because we're the upped account, we can have more people. We have the storage on there for cloud, but you guys do not. So don't hate us. It's mainly because of all the stuff that we've been doing lately for you guys on all these live meetings. So Andrew, I hope that answers your questions. If not, shoot me an email and we will get you guys, we'll get that answered for you. All right, let's take a look at another question. Oops. And let's go to Kate. Kate, what do you got?
Hi, Dan. Good morning. Yeah, my question about Zoom is about the control panel for the moderator. As moderator, I'm bringing students in from the waiting room periodically throughout. I also need to know how to navigate questions that are coming towards me and hand raising that's happening. and how to mute and unmute the correct microphones. I just want to make sure that I get good enough that goes relatively smoothly without long extended pauses while I'm searching for a particular student to mute or unmute. Mostly my settings are that they're muted and that they're not chatting with each other. I just want to know how to navigate those conversations from the panel. And then if the student's saying they can answer the question, whether it be in the chat or talking, how do I navigate all that? I'd like to see your panel as you navigate those types of situations. That would be great. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Kate. And it is kind of hard for me to show my panel, so I've kind of created a way that we can do that, and so hopefully you'll be able to see everything. So there I am. I'm going to go and stop that video, so that way you don't have to see me the whole time, and you can see just my screen. Now, again, I'm using a desktop. I use a Mac, or actually it's a laptop. Whether you're using a laptop or a desktop, PC, or Mac, it's pretty much the same. I'm going to say this again. I've said this over and over. iPads and Chromebooks are just another beast. I did make a video on using an iPad for the Zoom meetings. Take a look at that video for those of you that are using iPads. It's very much like running a PC or Mac meeting on a laptop or desktop. The Chromebook is just another beast in and of itself. I mean, it's totally different. It's not as robust as the other platforms. But really, Kate, the big thing is making sure that you practice. So, maybe during your PLCs, each of your, take a few minutes and have each of your colleagues be a student in your class. Start the meeting, have them join into the waiting room, practice them raising their hand and asking questions, and kind of put you guys yourselves in that scenario. It will help you out tremendously. When I'm in the Zoom meeting and I'm on my laptop, I like having my participant window open and I like having my chat open. If you notice, usually the chat menu is popped out here. Zoom has a feature with the desktop or laptop when it's open all the way that you can merge them all in one. So that way it's part of what you see as you're presenting. So my big head is right in the middle and that's what I'm presenting. So when my students go to join, I can very easily see that they're over in the waiting room. I can easily admit them. And again, I'm going to make sure that when the students come in, that when they're muted, I want to make sure that they are not allowed to unmute themselves. I want to make sure that I'm playing the enter and exit chime. Again, that won't play because I've got you guys in here as well. And I like having that waiting room open. So now I've got my student in. They have the ability to use their microphone. Remember that they cannot unmute themselves because I do have them frozen. They can start their video, but if I really want them to, maybe they're doing something inappropriate, or I've asked them multiple times to keep their video off, so I can very easily stop their video and they can no longer turn their video on. It's been disabled. So you can do that as well. But a lot of it is just the practice of noticing that hand has gone up. So if you notice right here, his hand's gone up. I'm in, I believe I'm in gallery view, or maybe I'm in speaker view. I like having the students up here as well. Gallery view, you can see them all in, but you can see that his hand is up. So when I see that hand up, I want to unmute him first. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute him. Let me mute my computer so that way we don't get feedback. So I'm going to unmute him. Now he's able to speak and do what he wants to say. When I'm done with him, I'm going to mute him. Let me unmute my computer now. And then I'm going to lower his hand for him. Now, what's nice, and I wish I could have multiple students all in here at once, but what's really nice is when you have multiple students raising their hand, they all get bumped up your list of participants. So you can actually see them over here on the right-hand side where they would all be, and you would see that little hand up there, just like that. So that's how I monitor that. And then again, with the chat, I always either say no one or host only, So that way it goes to me. And I can see that. I don't have to go back and forth between turning on the chat, turning off the chat. It's already there. So that's the way I like it. Like I said, usually you guys can't see what I've got going on my screen, so I kind of made it so you could, with some begging and pleading and some trying of stuff, and we were able to make it happen. So I hope that answers your question, Kate, but that's kind of a hard question because you don't always get to see my screen. A couple changes that they have made, if you've upgraded or updated any of your desktop, laptop, or iPads, they have added a little bit more security. So you can actually really quickly share your screen or turn on their chat. Again, I would turn off the ability for them to rename themselves. And then they've also added some reactions. So if I am the student and I'm asking, maybe I'm asking for thumbs up if they're ready, I can have them thumbs up. So just a couple things that kind of make things a little bit easier for you. But yeah, it's practice. That's what you got to do almost all the time. So great question, Kate. That was awesome. So let me bring this down here and let me bring up our next question, which I believe is a text question. I got it from email. So let's take a look at it. And this is from Todd Smith. How do I monitor all the backgrounds to make sure they are appropriate? For me, Todd, I just turn off virtual backgrounds for students. I think I've mentioned this in my Zoom meetings. I think I've even mentioned it here today, I believe. Both my sons take distance learning classes, and they're always seeming to change the background. And so for me, and I mean, literally, and I'll show you kind of what that looks like if you were the teacher. I'll show you that here in a second. But I also want to hear what Sonia has to say, because I think both of your questions kind of go together.
Hi, I have two questions about Zoom. The first one is there a way for me to see the students and my shared screen at the same time? The other one is about the virtual background. I did download some backgrounds, but when I show them, my hair disappears. All right, look forward to the Zoom.
All right, so it's kind of the same question, and the reason I'm putting them together is the virtual backgrounds, my answer will actually take care of each other. So let me go bring back up my Zoom meeting here. Here's why I don't like virtual backgrounds. If I'm the student, and let me go ahead and activate my video here. Oops. And I'm going to ask to start that video because I had asked it to. There we go. So now I'm in as the student. This is kind of what it looks like whenever you have students with virtual backgrounds. They'll sit there, they'll leave it like this, and then they'll change it here, and then they'll change it here, and then they'll come back here. Or if they don't like them, they'll go out and they'll start finding the ones that they want. You have no control over the virtual backgrounds. And so, like I said it earlier when I started answering Todd's question, there's no way to stop that unless you turn off virtual backgrounds. That's an all or nothing thing, and that includes you. I like having it off. That way my students can't fool around with the backgrounds. It just makes it easier overall. And as far as Sonia, is it picking up your hair? You got to remember it's a virtual picture, so it's going to try its best to fit you in there. If you really want a good virtual background and you don't want it to take a look at your hair, I would recommend getting like a green screen or maybe some green paper and putting it behind you. And you can actually set it up. So in the settings, when you go to choose your virtual background, if you're on it, again, this is if you're on a desktop or a laptop, you'll see a thing here that says, I have a green screen. If you click that, it'll actually look for the green screen and not try to put the virtual background forcibly behind you. So like right now, if I turn on my virtual background, it's forcing it behind me because I have no green screen. All I have is my office. But with that green screen turned on, it's going to look for that green screen. If you look, it just mutes it all out. So for me, I just keep it off. It's just less hassle overall. Sonia's other question was about multiple screens all at the same time. And the answer is no. I've actually tried it a few times. So like even though, let me go back here. If I look at the caret, multiple participants can share simultaneously. I've tried that a few times and it just doesn't work out well. Like if I'm sharing my screen, even though I'm on my student side, and I know you can't see my student side, but when I go to share content, it keeps telling me you cannot start screen sharing while the other participant is sharing. So I'm not sure what exactly that's about, because it seems to me that the settings should allow that. And even over here in the overall settings, you think I would be able to do that. So if I go into, let me go into my settings here. I've got to log in again. Let's see. Go to my screen share. So I would probably have to change it over in here just to make sure that it's allowed. So try that first. I'm going to see if I can try that. I don't know if it'll let me now that I'm in because I'm already in an open meeting. But try that, Sonia, and if that doesn't work, let me know, and maybe you and I can hook up, and we'll with Zoom, and we'll see if we can test that between the two of us. All right, let me stop that share, and let me come back in, and let's answer another question. Good question, Sonia. All right. Andrea, go for it.
Hi, Dan. I wanted to figure out how to record my Zoom meetings from my Chromebook. Because besides my Chromebook, all I have is my iPad and my iPhone. And there's no record button on my Chromebook. And I tried integrating Screencastify somehow to record from my Zoom meetings from there. But I don't think that's working. So if there's some way that I can possibly record my Zoom meetings and for my Chromebook, that would be very, very helpful. Thank you so much.
All right, so I think I've answered this a couple times, but again, this is probably the second question we get most often besides the chat. And I haven't tried it, but remember that screen or that recording is not available for Chromebooks or iPads. So I have not tried it with Screencastify, Andrea. I wrote it down. I'm going to make sure that I try that and see what happens. And if that's the case, I'll make a video on how to do that, and I'll share it out with the teachers. For now, since you do have your iPad and you do have your iPhone, I would use something like a voice recorder to record your meetings with your kids. Save them up into your Google Drive so that way it's a little bit easier for you to protect yourself, because that's really what the meetings should be recorded for, is to protect you as the teacher in case a parent comes back and says, the teacher said this during the meeting. You can say, oh yeah, let me play it for you. I never said that. So I'll explore that. I'll try to do that today, and if I can, I'll put out a video and I'll show you guys how that works. But if not, I think you guys might have to use another device to record your voice. Again, it's if you're comfortable with doing it, go for it. Record that voice. But if not, we'll see if we can find a different way. All right, Lisa, go for it.
Hey guys, I was gonna send you a couple of my questions. The first one is, when I went through your list of what to toggle on and what to toggle off, I don't see, and I don't have it, where it says allow host to put attendee on hold. So I don't know if that's something that maybe because of all the updating and whatnot that maybe it changed. I'm not sure. So could you let us know, or is that because I can't access it because I'm on a Chromebook? So just a question to throw out there. I've looked through it twice. And I can't find it. And then my next question for Zoom is, great, I can go through and set up a meeting, but how do I get that to my partner teacher so that the link is sent to her? There's no place on there that I can see that says email this to or invite this person. So my partner teacher was having a hard time today getting on, and so was I. So I managed to get in for myself, but, so I created the meeting, but hers was just spinning, So, I don't know. Anyways, thanks so much, and I'll talk to you guys later.
All right, Lisa, both great questions. So let's talk about the host on hold real quick, being able to put someone on hold. They did remove the put on hold. What you do now is you would put them back into the waiting room. That's kind of the same thing. And then when you're ready to bring them back in, you would just readmit them. So just use the waiting room for that. That to me is the biggest thing. They did, from what I see, they did remove the ability to put a participant on hold. Now it's just you put them back into the waiting room. Now, as far as your partner teacher goes, let's bring up the settings. And remember, I like doing all my stuff in the meetings portion. So I said I would go over it at the end of the meeting. I'm going to go ahead and go over it now. I'm going to go ahead and set up my pretend meeting. So I'm going to give it a description. I will be connecting with students. The date it's going to happen, I'll use today's date, and I'll use it for after our meeting this afternoon. My duration is going to be for a half hour. Just to let you know, when you set the duration, it doesn't mean the meeting ends automatically. It just shows the participants about how long the meeting is going to take. I never use recurring meeting because recurring meeting means that it's going to happen all the time. And now with kinder, you might be okay using a recurring meeting, but really for those older kids, the idea is that they don't have the ability to share that link out quickly, and you can sort of, at the end of every meeting, shut that meeting down and the kids can't come back in and be a part of that meeting, or Zoom bomb your meeting. Registration is not required. Meeting ID is generated automatically. I never require a password unless I'm in the older group. The older kids, I might say a password, but again, it's just another level of protection. That also means another level of problems. Host on, participant off. Audio, I always do both. Turn off, enable join. Turn on, mute participants. Turn on, waiting room. Turn off, authenticated. And you may or may not see record the meeting automatically. It depends on what device you're on. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to save. And this is where it gives me my confirmation. So my meeting is set. For me, I like hitting that Google Calendar button, and it takes me right to my Google Calendar. And it might ask you a couple questions to get there, but it's going to bring up the confirmation for the meeting. So Lisa, right here is where I would put in your partner teacher, and you would get invited to this meeting, and which would include the link. Now, from here, I would also take this link right here, and this is what I would put into, say, Google Classroom, Remind, Class Dojo, whatever it is that you use to get that information to your kids. Hapara, whatever it might be. But Lisa, this is where I would invite my guest, my co-host, my partner teacher, my admin, whoever it is that might go into those meetings with you. So I would do that in Calendar. It's just a real simple way of doing that. Now with Calendar, and we've pushed this out to you guys, excuse me, where you can create a meeting, and when you go inside, I think I showed this a little bit earlier, I don't remember because I've showed a lot. You can make it a Zoom meeting where you get all the options that I just went through. And again, it makes it all ready for them, and you can invite them here as well. So either way, it's up to you. I mean, like I said, I like doing it in the Zoom website just because that way I can go into settings and I can confirm, but you don't have to. You can also do it from your calendar. So again, it's completely up to you how you want to do it, but that's how I would do it. And Lisa, I'd be more than happy to get on a Zoom call and go over that with you. All right, let's take a look at the next two questions because they kind of go together based on what they are asking about.
Hello, this morning I was using the share screen on Zoom to play a video, a good morning song video, and the parent said that the sound was cutting in and out. I stopped the video and asked them to stop sharing their video, and that seemed to help. Is there any other solution for this problem so I can still see my students and see if they're participating in the song? Thank you.
All right, great question, Rachel. And I'm going to also put your question in there with Angelique. I think she's got one that kind of goes around along the same lines as yours, but hers has to do with the sound.
Good morning. I had a question about audio. When I'm playing a video through Zoom for my students to view, at this time I can't get it so that they can also hear the video. Thank you.
All right, so let's take a look at the video. I already have a video all up ready to go. So let me go over to Zoom. And so I'm ready to share my video. I'm going to share my screen. And my video is in my Google Chrome. Whoops. And let me stop that. Let me come back here. So you want to make sure that you are sharing the computer sound. So you can tell you at the very bottom it says other participants will be able to hear the audio. And also optimize the screen for video clip. And what that does is sort of optimizes how the video clip is being transmitted and makes it a little bit easier for the receiving computer. The other thing you need to make sure of is to make sure your sound is up. Now my sound is up, and I'm going to apologize. You're going to get an echo from my iPad where I've got my student watching along with my audio on my computer, because it does have to be off. If you mute your computer, it mutes the audio for the participants as well. So I'm going to use Jerry Brooks. He's going to give us a little bit, or Gary Brooks, excuse me. He's going to give us a little bit about summer communication fun.
I've got something super fun that you can do with your colleagues this summer when you all are text messaging as groups or individuals, rather than just sitting a boring old text message.
So you can see how they're popping through, and
first is to use video clips,
is I can't
and
see my
instead of texting,
students.
you just send a really quick video clip to
So
get your point across.
when I'm doing this,
First
I'm
is called
sharing
the
my screen.
TSBB. It's when someone starts talking about school in August.
So I'm trying to see if I can bring them up, and I can't.
Like when one of your colleagues says, I think I'm going to use super.
We're going to pause Mr. Brooks here. Yeah, so when I'm sharing, you can't see your kids. What I would recommend is if you're going to show a video, send it to your parents or put it in Google Classroom. Let them participate there. And then when you bring them in and do things synchronously, live with you, use that time to check on your kids and maybe sing the song or check their understanding at that point. But yeah, once you go into screen share, you are stuck with watching the video or whatever you're showing. I can't see my participants. So yeah, you're kind of stuck. So remember, the only thing you can really do is move this guy up and down. I can't view my participants. So that's going to be an issue. So yeah, you really can't do much of anything, because the minute I minimize this screen, it goes away for the kids as well, and it actually pauses the share screening. So I've got to bring it back up to him.
Heroes as my classroom theme this year. What do you?
And there's the audio again. So again, when you go to screen share, make sure these guys are optimized. But yeah, you won't be able to see any of your participants, because number one, if you want a really good signal going to your kids, turn off the videos for all your kids. So you really won't know whether or not they're participating or not. You just kind of hope that they are. Great question. All right, thank you, Mr. Brooks. Now let's come back here. Let's answer our last couple questions that go together. How do we use the polling feature that Steve used in his PDs? Laurel, that's a great question. Again, the polling feature is for the upgraded services that Zoom provides. What I would look at instead is something called Poll Everywhere. Let me pull that up. Poll Everywhere is a live interaction audience engagement. It's free. You get a 90-day premium plan for what we're going through right now, but there are free parts to it. Setup on it is fairly easy. You can also embed it into Google Slides, PowerPoint, however you want to do it. Just so you understand what you get to create unlimited questions. There is the max audience, but because they're giving the free engagement. In fact, here for unlimited users, you get it with K-12, you get free. So that's actually the one you want. But take a look at Poll Everywhere, polleverywhere.com. It's a great way of asking those questions, and they give you really good feedback at the end. So take a look at that, and you can share that with your kids as well. If you need help with that, let me know, and I'd love to sit down and check you out with that. All right, our last question, and then we'll have some final tidbits. Oh, I'm sorry, 2 more questions. Sandra, go for it.
Hi, thank you very much for helping us with all this technology. I have 3 questions. My first question is, how do I activate the poll? I know that is one of the features I've heard about that is available on Zoom so that I can poll my class and then look at the responses, but I haven't been able to figure out how. The next one is about audio. I have already asked my students to mute and turn off their videos, but still at times they're not able to hear me. And a lot of them get kicked off. And then I just told them, if you get kicked off, sign back in. But is there something to prevent them from getting kicked off so that I don't have the students leaving and coming back and missing part of the lesson? And then the third one is during one of our teacher meetings at PLC, the main teacher, the host, got kicked off because of her bandwidth, and it automatically made me the host. And we couldn't figure out how or why it did that. So if you could let us know, because we would hate for that to happen during a meeting with our students where the teacher gets kicked out and then all of a sudden the student becomes a host. Thank you. That's it.
All right, Sandra, so I'm going to answer these questions. I think I answered the first one with Laurel about the poll everywhere. That's what I would use. Upgraded account, you get the polling. Audio and video, so remember that when you are in Zoom, that when you are looking at your participants, make sure you have allowing participants to be turned off and making sure that they mute the participants on entry. Those are 2 really big ones. Again, make sure that's turned off. And then the minute that the student unmutes themselves and activates their camera, like I just did, make sure that the minute you stop their video, they can no longer turn on their video. It's been disabled. So you can remove that access to them as well. As far as people being kicked off, that's a bandwidth issue. However, your concern about a new host being made is a problem. I don't know how to solve that. That's something that I'm going to email Zoom about, and hopefully I will get an answer. So I can't answer the whole idea about a new host being made. So for example, if I'm hosting my meeting right now and I get kicked off, it will make my next participant the host. So that is a big deal. If it ever pops up, and I'm going to talk about it here in a little bit, we want to make sure that we click on in meeting for all. If you just leave the meeting, it's going to give someone else the host. So yeah, big deal. That's kind of a good idea where you can have a co-host that can go in and end your meeting for you if something happens. No one else can become the host. The co-host takes over. So it's sort of a non-answer for you, Sandra, but it's probably your best bet is to have someone co-host even though they're not a part of it. Maybe just have it muted off to the side, and that way if you get kicked off, you still have someone who can end the meeting and you can reopen it up afterwards. So good question. I wish I had more information for you, but I really don't. So I hope that answered all 3 questions. Our last video has nothing to do with Zoom, but I love the entry. So Charla, what do you have to say?
You mean to tell me it's that easy to use Flipgrid? I need to learn more about Flipgrid.
Yeah, Charla, it is an awesome program. And if you have a chance to go into Melissa's Flipgrid class later this afternoon, highly recommend it. It's a very simple program. And if you can't make it, or Charla, sign up or let me know, and we'll create a meeting and we'll meet and I'll walk through Flipgrid with you. It's a very, very fun program to go through. So yeah, Flipgrid, it's that easy. All right, some last things, and then we'll take a look at time and see where we are for taking some questions. So if you are the host and you leave the meeting or you get kicked off, have that co-host ready so they can end the meeting for you. But make sure when you leave, you end that meeting. Make sure you check those settings daily. Use the waiting room. Don't depend on who you know is coming in and out. Prepare ahead of time and set those meetings. And remember, Zoom meetings are for checking in with your students, answering questions, making connections. It really should not be a synchronous lesson, because I'll tell you right now, your kids will click off of you, and that'll be the last time you see them for a while. Couple last minute notes. Again, the tech hotline, 789-6600. That's for staff, students, and parents. Be patient with them. There's a few of them and a lot of us, a lot of students, and a lot of parents trying to call. They are trying to keep up as much as possible, but it is really hard to do that. So give them a little bit of a chance. Tell your parents to leave a message. They do speak Spanish there on the hotline, so Spanish parents can call as well. Spanish-speaking parents can call as well. So again, be patient with them. Email them. If you go to the Learning at Home website, it will give you the question and answers, and you'll have their phone number, their email address, some Q&A that we've put up as well. And there's also, and I'm trying to see if it's on here, online learning help. We've got a set of videos that will help with your students trying to get into where they need to be. So here's how to change all the videos into Spanish or whatever language they speak, PSD ClassLink, apps and websites to ClassLink. Let's see here, first time login to Google Classroom, accessing Zoom from a Chromebook, Zoom via an iPad or tablet, accessing Zoom on a desktop. So they're all here for your students or for you or for your parents to take a look at. Obviously, the PSD EdTech website, here's where our web recordings are, our webinars, our remote teaching resources, our pop-up webinars. If you want to get a hold of if you want to get a hold of one of us, take a look at our virtual meeting calendar. Steve's going to send out an email. You probably already got it, that shows our meeting calendar, and you can sit there and you can click on an appointment wherever you see an open slot, fill it out. Please give us a description if you can, right here where that line is, and we would be more than happy to sit down with you over Zoom and talk to you about any questions you might have. So take a look at our EdTech website, palmdalesd.org/EdTech. And if you just can't get a hold of us, Google it.